February 7th, 2025, Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation. It's in order. Do we have anything coming? Well, I think I got it right. We have Laura, we have Trish, we have Clark, David, Jar, Matt, and resident Natalie Siberio. Checking with them. Yeah. Okay. We're going to start with public concern?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Best Jennifer.
Okay, just, I see that the drainage, issue and analysis, is on the, agenda, so I just was looking for an update. And then the actual comprehensive town plan, haven't really heard anything about that. Is there a different forum where we should be, at least updating the residents, or at least me, as to where we are? In that, and of course, obviously the drainage and the town plan go hand in hand, because, and also moratorium. I don't know if you guys know, but Saratoga has announced that they are considering a moratorium. And I think that that makes sense in the township, especially if we're undergoing a town plan and we're incorporating a drainage study that will hopefully do subsurface water, so we can have better information prior to approving building. Because I think it doesn't make sense, at least to me, to approve building when we have potential issues underground that we haven't really captured the data that we need in order to responsibly go forward with the development. And then also with the new administration cutting out a lot of federal, regulations in relation to environmental issues, I think is more important to have our town plan established. And then also having that drainage study and a halt on building until we have absolutely all the information we need to responsibly move forward. I know that we have a 200 condo development that's being proposed off of Hillside Avenue. And then we have something going on down by the river. And we don't even know if we actually need those many condos in our township. And I've seen what's happened in California, where they've developed and overdeveloped, and then buildings remain vacant, and it just destroys the community. So I just think these are things that really should be better thought out before we move forward with perhaps just approving developments. And then finally, water tests. If we can have information for the residents regarding how often we test the water in this enough, and then also provide that information to the residents so we understand what's in our water. And then also, if RFK gets approved, his goal is to eliminate fluoride in the water. And, that might be a year or two off, but if we can have information on how the township is going to be looking at that. That's it. Thanks.
Okay. What's the easiest way? Do you want a couple of quick updates, or do you want to talk afterwards, or what's?
Well, you guys do your meeting, because I know you guys have things to do and I don't want to eat up your time. Just you understand my concerns, and however it is convenient for you, I'm always available.
If Clark and we'll do an update on the drainage when that comes on that item. The comprehensive plan does actually report at this committee meeting. But you can actually also attend their meetings. They're public and they're on the calendar.
Now, when is that?
The next one is this Tuesday.
Yep. This is an outlier.
For the first time.
In residents attend or not?
Yeah.
Okay. And what time is that on Tuesday? 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Here?
Here.
Okay.
Generally.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Okay.
All right. We've got the minutes. Do we have minutes?
Yeah, there are minutes.
There's a bunch of emails. Yes.
Yeah, it's the January 3rd. They're in the packet.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th?
A second.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved from January 3rd. And we'll start with resolutions on this. And then we want to for agenda and finance section there. Do you want to run through them? Do you usually run through them or does John?
I'm having a hard time loading the packet on my computer, but hopefully it'll be ready for Mosquito Harbor. But the first one is a resolution setting the 2025 TDE rates. We had this on last month, but I was still missing 2 quotes. So we have quotes from MJ, we have quotes from KB Engineering, which was Prime. We have a quote from Weston Sampson, and then we have a new TDE who broke away from a company that GPI that we liked with a lot. And he's a one kind of one-man show, but he has a lot of experience, and so he might be like a cheaper, smaller option for some of the littler projects. So those will all be attached. You're ready to go by the end of the month. The second resolution authorizing a PUD application for 2757 Aqueduct Road. This is Natalie, it's on Aqueduct Road, but this is the 200 unit condominium condominium proposal from Mosquito Harbor, Richard DeSaro. So they have gone to the planning board for 3 meetings. Well, this will be the 3rd one on Monday. The planning board has discussed the criteria for making an application for a PUD. There's some things they identified that we definitely want to work on them with, which we put in the draft resolution. The scale may be slightly too big based on wetlands and things with the land. The sort of configuration may be too tight and it's not making the best use of the natural features. But generally speaking, condos are a rare type of dwelling unit in the town of Mosquito. We don't have a lot of them. We have some on Fieldstone Estates and we have some on Hillside. But they help people age in place, and it's ownership as opposed to River's Ledge, which is rental. So that we found a plus.
So the demographics are going to be pretty wide ranging. They're looking to do working class and some upscale stuff. So that was another talking point that we asked them about. We want them to look at connectivity to the river, not necessarily putting in a harbor boat slip for yachts or anything, but even if it's like a kayak board or something, just look at opportunities. They're going to research what they can do with the Erie Canal right of way that's along there, similar to what River's Ledge did. And then connectivity within the grounds itself with walking paths and something to mimic some of the other larger areas, similar to what River's Ledge did as well. I think that kind of.
Yeah. So Monday, the planning board will make a recommendation to the town board on it. I expect that it'll be a positive recommendation based on the conversations we've had. We have concerns, but we think we can work through them with the PUD application.
This is just the application.
This is just allowing application. There's still a big unknown factor with the wetlands. Could very substantially change the project. They haven't heard back from the DEC on the wetlands yet. And here, finally got it.
Yeah.
That was impressive that you could click through all of that and talk apparently.
Right here at the planning board. So, so the wetlands may still play a huge role because of the wetland regulations in New York State, where they have been collecting data and had some preliminary conversations, but they don't have a full determination from DEC on how the wetlands are the gray hatched lines here. The lighter gray hatched lines underneath the buildings were wetlands that were predetermined by the Army Corps of Engineers to be non-jurisdictional, but we still don't actually know how that will, how that'll play a role with DEC determination. So that's there's still a lot of unknowns. But we do know conceptually that condos there would probably be better than single family homes, and that, clustering the development and allowing more open space is also probably going to be better than just a regular single family home. So
Price range.
they've been saying 300,000
to probably up to over 600. It depends. There's 3 different units. There's large units that would have, I believe it's 10 that are facing the river, and then one that runs around The ones down at the bottom that are clustered at the bottom are 6. They have garages on each side. So everybody gets 3 walls basically. So it's like very similar to what's across the street, that type of layout. And then the other ones are up to, I think it's 8 units. Our concern is to see the middle bank of, those are pretty tight as far as where they are. We discussed that with them. There's some wetlands that are non-jurisdictional that are hatched underneath them. You can see right there kind of in the middle. There is a natural pond on the site, which is quite nice. They did do some initial work with Rivers Ledge to make sure that the sanitary that actually goes to Schenectady will hold this many units. And in fact, it would improve the flow if it got more activity to it. And then their connectivity with, obviously, where the bike path is and Aqueduct Road. The challenge on this site is it does slope, obviously, down the river. But the point where they have to come in, we did discuss where the road cut would be, because you have to go, through that little small development there in order to cross the road to get into the area. That's the flattest spot. It's also one that has some of the best visibility along the road. It's a tight area, but
Is that the bike path there, the top one?
This is the bike path.
right there,
Right
correct.
here.
Yeah,
This is the road.
and that's another thing too, because we would have to apply as the town to get passage.
So there's a lot of moving parts, but we think that, obviously the configuration, all designs develop. But at least it was their first jumping off point. And they had a pretty decent marketing package that they included for us in there.
Yeah, I think from the CAC standpoint, the connection with the river was very, very important to open that space up for residents and stuff like that. We also thought that perhaps a small boat launch or something there to get people out on the river would be appropriate. It would be something to strive for.
Maybe it's just residential units. Yeah, that reminds me, actually, this resolution that would go before the town board is a resolution authorizing the PUD application, also authorizing us to work with New York State on the bike path crossing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we were gonna do it together.
Think we've done that before?
No,
We
that's,
already know
well,
the
we
process?
did do it for Rivers Ledge, but there were 2 separate resolutions.
Oh, okay, but we know the process about going about it, right? You did say that.
It's interesting because this land a long time ago, more recently, was all zoned industrial.
Yeah.
So that has been the objective of the plan, of the comp plan, is to get the industrial use in that area.
Yeah.
The third one, I didn't read it very well when Rita first sent me the email, but I went back and reread it after she and I had a lot of discussion about some of the historic sections of the comprehensive plan, but there's a group of townships and historical societies that are trying to create an underground railroad to commemorate Harriet Tubman running, slaves from the south to the north through the Underground Railroad. And they reached out to Rita and mentioned that the railroad, I think it starts in New York City, right, Rita? And then it comes up to Albany and turns. So it would go right through Schenectady, right through the Niskayuna train station. And they're looking for resolutions of support from the municipalities that the Underground Railroad byway would go through. It's no cost to the town. We already actually have a byway that goes through the town, the Erie Canal Byway. But they're very good at generating tourism because people follow them, they stop, they learn, they go along. They're quite cool. And so there is, I know that he had sent a resolution or thought he sent a resolution, but he didn't really.
You
But
can attach it.
there is a sample letter you can download from the byways, from the Underground Railroad Byways website. And probably the resolution would say something similar to this, but it's a 550-mile Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad corridor. Begins in New Jersey, travels to Albany, runs to Utica, Syracuse, Auburn. I think it goes past her house, which is in Auburn. I think, right? Yeah, jump in if I'm saying wrong things. And then yeah, I just think it looks great. I can try and get the sample resolution. I can see why we wouldn't want to support something like that. Did you want to add anything to that?
Well, it does include a part of Niskayuna. That's that widely known story where they had pardon my dog, of Charles Nally. It's widely read. I mean, widely written about. Okay, and the only situation is that we wanted to put it in a comprehensive plan.
Right.
And that was my only objection, because if like we do surveys about certain things, and I think that that's something that you may want to do a survey. Okay, because this is this community, but the as far as the byway is concerned, okay, it is a legitimate action, because if they're linking, what it is about linking the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad already exists. Okay, there's an organization in Albany that they have all the data. This is what they study. Okay, the train station is also involved in chiefly in that story that's widely. It was in the newspapers at the time here. Okay, it was covered. It's been covered in articles, academic articles, and books. The history, anytime you see now things written about Harriet Tubman, they include that story specifically. Okay, so if you Google, you will see Niskayuna linked with Charles Nally. Okay, and the reason being that they want to link these is because they have a link include Niskayuna, because that pathway is a railroad. A lot of times the railroads were used to conduct people to Canada. So that's something that they consider.
Yeah, and another thing you said, Rita, is possibly if Niskayuna gets designated, if the train station gets designated as part of the Underground Railroad byway, there may be more ways to get funding to maintain it over time, right?
Yes, because the thing is, there are grants giving, and we know this, there are grants giving for specific, histories.
Yeah.
Right. And now that railroad building would be eligible for those grants. You see, because anything that's connected with Harriet Tubman money has been thrown at it. I mean, they have the Harriet Tubman House. Schenectady had gotten money for a statue with Steinmetz, with her and Steinmetz for the library. So, I mean, it opens up a lot for that train station building that doesn't have to be a burden on the town.
Yes. Any questions on that one? The fourth one is I have been finalizing the permits now that we've passed the short-term rental code, so that if people do choose to pursue the short-term rental permits, we already have the forms ready for them, and we have to adopt fees. Our code doesn't adopt the fees itself, so that the town board can modify them more easily. You don't want to open up amending the zoning code in order to change fees. So we'll need a resolution at the end of the month adopting the fees.
Do you have some ideas on that?
I can go through what we have and give you some ideas. If we're having a special meeting, it would be better to put it on a special meeting, but it doesn't have to have a special meeting.
A special meeting.
I don't think, I can send out the letters to people saying you gotta come register without fees being established.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask Elena?
We could ask. It's,
Yeah.
it's okay for it to go to the end of the month because they can have everything all ready and set and go out on March 1st.
If it's ready and we can do it, we'll do it.
But- Yeah, that has to be done, I think, before I can do the final implementation. The fifth one is a resolution recognizing Market 32's outstanding landscaping installation and maintenance efforts at Market 32 Place in 2024. I know it's winter, so you can't really see it anymore, but the Tree Council has been asking for this for a while. Market 32 was excellent to work with, planted more trees than they needed to, watered them over the summer, which most of the places just plant and then hope that everything will be fine, and then it's hot and not. So the Tree Council has been asking if we can give them a just recognition for what a good job they did.
They write something up, or do they want us?
They
to
can,
write it?
yeah, they
That'd be
can.
great.
And then the sixth one is a resolution creating a Paul Schaefer Homes Committee. I know, David, you've been talking about that with John. I didn't know if we were ready for this month or if you wanted to be tentative. Or how you want to.
I think you were shooting for February.
Okay,
So-
so then it's on, yeah, do you want to just explain a little bit about it?
Sure. So a group of residents contacted me, and some of them were Paul Schaefer home owners and wanted to know if there was a way to catalog and recognize on a local level Paul Schaefer's contribution to the homes he developed. So what we did was we got together some of the residents and came up with a outline of what we were thinking to do just to get an inventory going. So working along with Rita, the Architectural Review Board, and a handful of residents, we asked John to sponsor a resolution to put together a formal committee. They could canvass the neighborhood in the spring, come up with a listing, try to collect as much basic information as we can to identify Schaefer homes, and then get that into some sort of archives that the town can use. And then from there, I think ultimately just get a local recognition that these are homes and see what they want to do in conjunction with the Kelly Adirondack Center and Union College. It's completely separate from the town at that point. Yeah.
Are we running this as sort of the committee's purpose just to get the inventory together and then?
Step one. Yeah, step one. So once the committee's established, then they would meet here. It's an established committee, meet at town hall. Don't meet in someone's kitchen or someone's backyard, which is kind of like taking all these collections and put them together. So we want to formalize it. That's what it is. So just the first step is to get the inventory, find out what we think, know, or maybe even suspect, and kind of rank those, and then take some pictures, get some addresses, reach out to some owners, and see what's out there.
Yeah, okay, I hope that people have some cool pictures and things like that. I'm sure some of these have changed over time, but
Yeah. And it's a mixture. So when Paul did a commercial enterprise, there's a ton of information at Kelly Adirondack Center that's archived there. Residential, he most times just turned everything over to the homeowners. Some people kept them, some didn't. So depending on, his beginning works in the early 30s all the way through the 60s, there's been maybe one or two homeowners. Sometimes there's been more changeover. So some people have a lot of information, others just have a little bit of stuff, and some have none at all. So we're trying to use architectural language, actual data, and history of people that have, lived or in the neighborhoods that have that. So that's step number one. After the local recognition is found, then they could start their own community group if they want to get plaques to recognize the house. There's no covenants on there. We're not telling you can't do anything. We're hoping that they're going to be good stewards. They can exchange information on great contractors, but hopefully they can preserve these houses in their original character and appearance.
Okay, and then we don't have any identified discussions for this meeting unless somebody wanted to bring one up.
I'll just give you a quick update of my conversations about the train station. We're gonna have to have a few follow-ups to this, but I connected with Guy Gridley, who has offered to sort of take on the project of raising the money to improve the train station even beyond what we had sort of envisioned. So I had a great conversation with him. His family has a long history in Niskuna, so it's a passion project for him. He also has access to a friend of his who does I'm sure I'm saying this incorrectly, but they take historic facilities and try to bring them back to a time period. And so he apparently works all over the state and has agreed to come and help sort of without cost for some planning purposes. His idea is that he's actually offered to front the money right now to fix the roof and the decking so that the train station could sort of be opened up and people could look at it, and over the summer kind of have that help with the fundraising, maybe, you know, on nice days put poster boards and stuff out to try to get passersby to pay attention and maybe contribute. I'm working with Elena to try to figure out the best way for an outside entity to be involved in all of that. So working on that now. And also I wanted to get, is it Kinney? Sorry, Kinney. So he had done some initial plans I think would probably be helpful in that like first step of getting things improved. So I'm going to connect the two of them to as sort of like an initial project, and I'm sure I'll have a better update for you when things become a little bit more gelled for next month. But that was my first conversation with them, and was very excited about this project, and I was so excited that somebody wanted to take it on.
So other than the porch that's around the back, is the rest of the building in poor condition or?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's in great shape.
Yeah.
It's not really safe right now because the decking is not.
Problem, but you mentioned the roof stuff. Are we?
The roof, I think, is what part of what's causing more damage on the decking from what I think Mr. McKinney had told us that. So those are the two things they want to fix so that nothing gets damaged any further. But I think also he sent over a few mock-ups, and it's exactly what we talked about, just kind of bringing it back. But he had some really cool colors and added a few period pieces that I guess this guy he works with has access to, and and we had sort of talked about loosely in various groups, what do we do with it once it's all fixed up? And so he's floated the same ideas that we all have, you know, prepackaged ice creams. We don't have a sink or anything in there. Maybe just leaving it as like a little museum or like a stop on the way through, or maybe buy a bottle of water on the bike path. But just as a way of sort of creating more of a gathering place there. Not that people don't gather, but it's not necessarily the hot spot to go and sit in. It's such a beautiful area. We also talked about cutting back some of that brush that had gotten a little overgrown. And he's trying to figure out whether or not it would be possible to bring out the decking further. So there was like sort of an overlook, but then kind of a precarious spot. So I don't know if it's possible or if it would be too expensive to make that work, but all things that are kind of being thrown out now. But I'm just excited that he's so passionate about the project.
We actually get quite a few people through there. There was a report done in the 2008, 2009, might have been even later than that, but they were saying there was like 250,000 uses a year. You know, so it's
A lot of people.
a lot of people come through there.
but the building needs stabilization before.
Yeah.
Do anything. Yeah, and I think we were saying it's in the floodplain.
Should be raised out of
Yeah, there's some big hoops to jump through for here. So that's on the list. I may have found a person who wants that passion project too, so I'll let you know.
Yay.
So a couple resolutions we had. One was 441 Balltown Road, had a tenant change from Metro Max to Consumer Cellular. So that was approved. One that's come back from last year is 929 Pierce Road, which is a 2-lot subdivision. That one now is a much more compliant rectangular subdivision. They're going to be going to the zoning board for basically a 5-foot frontage, road frontage on both lots. That's an area that has a lot of known water issues from previous construction and existing. So the engineer that's been hired is very familiar with the area, has some information that has to be really vetted out. But that one's definitely on our radar, along with also talking with that current developer about tree clearing. So that's also right on the forefront of that one. 480 Balltown Road is a site plan application for new lighting at the Bank of America ATM. That's right by the paint store and right there. So that's just a one-to-one swap out, and we're looking to improve the landscaping along Balltown Road as part of that property. We talked about 2757 Aqueduct Road, which is Niskuna Harbor PUD. cover that one. New ones we have are down on Albany Street, Fillmore Ave. There's a lot line adjustment between two properties that have a very odd configuration. The owner owns both properties and wants to make a larger backyard. One's truncated like an L, the other one is very trapezoidal. So that one looks like it.
Great word, trapezoidal.
It's better than oblique spheroid. It's kind of covers everything, but that one definitely has some better merit to it. So we're working with that one. That's an open one. 2727 Balltown Road is a sketch plan application for a 2-lot subdivision. Again, that has another trapezoidal lot that's there. So if you know where the old vet building was that was turned into apartments that has the columns, it's adjacent to that property. Right? Just south. Right. And a house and there's a building and then a section off. 412 Balltown Road is an application for Dave's Hot Chicken to move into Pure Barre that's currently there.
Dave's Hot Chicken.
Yeah, so this is one of the end buildings that actually you see from Balltown Road as you're coming up.
Yeah.
It has 3 facades. Jengus on our board has been working with the applicant, and the signage package has been brought down into compliance. Almost. A lot of stuff has gone back into compliance, and then there's some other things we have to talk about balancing on that one, but they have
The
been.
chain.
It is.
Okay.
It is. They have one in Albany on Western Ave. They do very decorative, colorful facade art. Call it that. Okay. It's graphics. It's not on the windows. It's painted onto the facades. All very colorful. Almost like a border. If you want to pull one up, you
Yeah.
can. It can be done. Yeah, it can. It's it's got an abstract. It's got an abstract feel to it, but it's definitely different. So what part of the discussion is how to balance the colors and stuff that's in that facade right now with that area, along with what the applicant is looking for. So, yeah.
Like the building is breaking and the colors are underneath.
The original package is toned down a lot. We saw we had larger signs, LED lights that ran around the top of the building. And this was quite a
Roleplay.
yeah. Bright red awnings. That's a topic of discussion for Monday. So it's interesting. They're
I mean, it does look cool, but I don't know how that would fit there. Yeah, I'm trying to think about what Pure Bar was on the corner.
Yeah, Pure Barre's
So this is interesting because that section has a lot of parking lot that surrounds us. You got the other area Panera at the one end, and then there was a previous plan that sort of took some of the outside sidewalk area and took a parking space and made an outdoor temporary eatery out there. But maybe there's and if this is successful, maybe there's an opportunity to enhance the plaza where there's some more outdoor activity seating area versus season parking. That's always something we try to balance, but right now we're
A lot of parking like in the middle section.
ton of
right?
parking on
Yeah.
that one end. And there's a sidewalk that goes around it, but not, it's just, it's these non-space areas that don't really get fully used. But they have to get through planning with their facade package of signage. Yeah, that's a good photo of that.
yeah, just
This is the first go at it.
yeah. Do they have LED robe lighting on the top glowing red, awnings red?
One way to get people in there. They're trying to draw the eye.
Tame it down a little bit.
No pyrotechnics. But there were 4 open items we had to discuss with them on that. So first off is trying to get some code compliant signage. They did that. It's interesting. They want to do that colorful wrap on the lower parts of the building, and that one side faces the Lowe's be on the right hand side. Correct. And then the awnings are
It faces like basically Route 5, and then this side faces Balltown. It's over here. This is Spectrum, and then here's over here. Yes, it'll be DMS.
It's a pretty sizable end unit. And then ones that are still in waiting on the applicant is 2339 First Schenectady Road. That is the mobile station on Route 7. We have not seen anything back formally from the applicant on that one, but that will be a non-conforming use if they want to expand over 10%, which would go to the zoning board. And then the only other thing that we're continually doing is we're asking our board members to keep reaching out to other committees, try to be liaisons to projects or anything that they have so they can report back and open up lines of communication to other departments.
Dave?
Yeah, we're definitely getting busier.
That's missing in that spot too.
Yeah, so zoning board has one rehearing request on Bobby Court, one extension request on Williams, and then 3 new cases for the zoning board, all residential area variances. For the grants update, the Climate Smart Communities grant, we have an invoice that we just have to figure out how to pay. Been working with Janet on that. I think we had originally set the money aside, but it may not have rolled forward, so you got to relook at that.
What's that one?
It's the New York State DEC Climate Smart Communities grant. It's $50,000. We did. I don't know if we rolled it forward or not though. Somebody just has to show me where it rolled forward. The NYSERDA grant has been going relatively well thanks to Trisha's never-ending patience and hard work. I think we're still waiting on one last shipment though, right? Yep. Yeah. The Mohawk River Watersheds NRI grant, we had a long discussion with this at CAC. We feel that it's basically ready in draft form, and we're probably going to be voting at the next CAC meeting to share that with the town board. That may be a resolution for March. And the linkage study grant, we've been steadily building partnerships to try and get everybody in a room and start working on Route 7 concepts. And I believe the next meeting is next week sometime. I'd have to go look. And I think you'll see a website for that study up and running soon. For complete streets, still got a lot of attention on the sidewalk project, especially on Birdwood. The survey is complete. We have not received any initial concept designs from the engineers yet. Trying to avoid trees, trying to create traffic calming, trying to make safe spaces for people to walk. But get a lot of pushback on who's responsible for maintaining the sidewalk and people not wanting to travel. Need sidewalks. And then they are ready to send out 2025 priority letters. So then when they're all signed and ready, probably they come to you, Erin. What they are is essentially the Complete Streets identifies the top 3 priorities for the town, the county, the state, and the schools, so that they're aware of what we're working on and that they can try, and if they have the ability to do those things, they know what the town wants and then they can help. The tree council has also basically got their street tree master plan ready for circulation. Probably want to start sharing that with department heads, and that may be ready to come to the town board for presentation and adoption here in the next month or 2. It's taking a long time, basically done entirely by volunteers with a small amount of help from a consultant, but pretty much
It's like a lot of work. It's a pretty long document.
yeah, it is a lot of work. Yeah.
The Conservation Advisory Council met. We did talk about the projects that David talked about, the one on Balltown Road and the one on Pierce. We had a fairly significant conversation about Pierce because it's kind of an interesting situation because someone came in, bought a piece of property, is taking down an existing home, wants to put 2 houses on that are non-conforming to the area. So we've asked the planning department to go off and look at all the surrounding lots to see that if that pattern persisted, what implications that would have to the area. Because it could potentially be significant. We had a lot of challenges with flag lots over the years on that. The area is very unique, I'd say, in the way it's developed. So we are looking at that. We did not make any decisions on that.
The new proposal though takes the flag shape out, right?
It takes the flag shape out, but what the developer is proposing to do is take down an existing structure and then subdivide the lots into two non-conforming lots to build a house. Now, that two houses, yeah. So that is somewhat different than what we've seen in the town, and other communities do have challenges with that. So we just want to be very careful about how we look at that.
Is it close to where we had?
Laura
Yeah,
has,
what we want to avoid is people starting to sort of predatorily identify houses that are functioning perfectly fine and
And take them down.
and take them down and
Taking
then
them down
come and
is
say,
usually
hey,
too
you know,
much.
I would need a variance to get this in. So we need to really look at this before we any recommendation.
see this white kind of footprint here.
That's the house.
That's the existing house. So it was placed right in the middle of the lot. Like,
Right.
I don't think there was any intention.
There's a barn,
Barn,
which is
yeah.
red on the upper part.
But this wouldn't be a typical place that you'd see a subdivision.
How big are the two lots?
They're big.
They're deep, but the road frontage is 95 feet.
They're 0.6 acres, 0.8 acres. But they are short on their frontage.
I mean, the challenge there is you have a lot of very skinny lots. That go with it.
Oh,
But
that's
we
right.
have planning board meetings.
Yeah,
So
they're-
929 is this yellow, oops, too fast, Laura. I don't normally use this program. 929 is the one in question. We've had, these are like what the comprehensive plan sort of call spaghetti lots because they're very, very long. 929 is smaller than all of the other subdivisions that we've seen on Balltown Road. It's the smallest, but we want to look and see what the potential would be if we started taking down the homes that are right in the middle of these lots. What would happen there?
There's a good example on Mohawk Road, little bungalow that could be very easily subdivided.
Yeah,
That's for sale by owner.
yeah. And
I have that part of that area too, just gives me anxiety.
yeah, we just don't want it to be
Anything.
like profitable to take down a single family home that has been functioning.
I mean, that's a pressure that this community doesn't have right now. That's big. But I know a lot of communities downstate, that is a very big problem.
Let's shift there.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely need to be aware of that. Because it will be here. So. The other thing we talked about was the NRI. We finished phase 2, which is between phase 1 and phase 2. We have a good handle on the public open space. So there's a lot of list of recommendations, and one of the things the committee would like to do is, we know the town board has a lot of priorities, but we would like to help you come up with a list of important things that we'd like to address first. So it would be a helpful list, suggestion list, much like what Big Streets does. So we're going to start working on that. The other thing we talked about was going for a phase 3. That's going to require some work, upfront work before we go through the grant. Because what we'd like to do is get access to some of the large private properties. So we need permission from the landowner.
Okay.
But that would be the next phase that we're going to go after.
And we identified, we think that the Mohawk Watersheds grant would work again.
Yeah.
And we think that it's gonna come out in 2026.
Perfect, so you're saying.
They won't give us the grant unless we have permission. So we have to come up with a strategy to approach landowners.
Yeah, so they specifically allow natural resource inventories, but if they're on private property, as part of the grant submission, you have to have the permission already.
How many lots were you looking?
Well, there's actually quite a few big, I would say, privately held areas. We're saying probably 40 acres or more. And there's other areas that are very strategic from these are right next to, a larger parcel or town parcel. So there are things that we would like to look at.
Well, I think we're at a point where we have built out so much, it's worthy to stop and take a look everywhere we can, private, public. just-
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily it really doesn't tie the landowner to anything like that. All we're really
Just
doing
that.
is just trying to understand what open space is left in the town. So when development takes place, we can be more knowledgeable about what's available.
Sort of curious, I want to go and look how many are 40 acres or more. Where are these places?
We can have a conversation on that. I can.
So you just develop a plan for how you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, it's interesting, we have approached a few landowners about conservation. So. But other communities do this. I mean, this is not outside the mountain. So that's where we are with the CAC. We're continuing a lot of the climate initiatives, other than the greenhouse gas initiatives, are slow. This is the slow period of time, but it'll pick up in the spring.
I like the pesticide.
Like the pesticide tree.
Slow mowing. Nobody's mowing.
Oh,
Nobody's leaf blowing. No, my dad has an electric snowblower.
You
like
said
a
that.
plug-in?
No.
My dad used to have a plug-in one of like,
The thing actually you're using your electric lawnmowers.
and it works.
It works. He says he doesn't think it would work great with like 6 inches or more, but it works when you're on the small snowstorms. If you keep up with them, and they're very quiet. Do you want to do anything for architectural review board?
I can just give a quick update. The last meeting was January 15th, and they're really focusing on 2 projects, as Dave mentioned, 2339 Torrey Schenectady Road, Aries Mobile. Just offering really their advice and tips on how to make any addition be as residential as possible in that area. So they're kind of we've been keeping them up to speed with the early drafts, and they're ready to offer their assistance. And then 2757 Aqueduct, the Niskuna Harbor, we shared that plan with them, and they thought it was very dense, as did the planning board. So they recognize that's just a really early version. They, as we've talked about, Rivers Ledge has a much better flow through the property and curved roads. So there's a long way to go on Niskuna Harbor. And then we've also reached out to them to see if anyone would be interested in being part of the Schaefer Homes Committee. And no one has volunteered yet, but I'll follow up with them right away so we could get them on that resolution.
Okay, because you have at least 4 names already, right?
5.
5, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, probably get a ton of people down there committee too. Like thinking of my own family members, be like,
You know that guy that Joy Wang was trying to connect to you with you? Is he on there?
What's his name?
I don't know. I'll look for you.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay, so comprehensive plan. So the committee has basically been working on 3 chapters currently. So the open space recreation, and what we're doing is we're incorporating the natural resource inventory in there. So I don't think the names of these chapters are appropriate for the scope of them. But the open space really looks at what is strategic for the town going forward to maintain what residents say is a really important characteristic. So that's one part of it, but it also talks about recreation. And one of the areas that we are addressing is what's the rec center. Well, what does that mean, and what should be the future for that? That's a fairly substantial part of directing where the town should go in the future. Second part is we've been working with the Complete Streets Committee to talk about complete streets. Again, that is much broader than just the streets. It's bike paths, it's circulation, it's what do we need to improve the infrastructure of the town in order to provide opportunities for circulation for vehicles, bikes, pedestrians. How do we interconnect neighborhoods? The third area we've been working on is the historic preservation, and that has been sort of expanded as well. So when we think about historic preservation, we think about historic buildings, and that is definitely one component of this chapter. But this chapter also is going forward to sort of address how can we recognize our traditional old neighborhoods, and that's neighborhoods of where we have street lined streets and stuff. How do we protect that type of structure? So one thing we are looking at is like heritage districts and stuff. And we're trying to incorporate the Architectural Review Board as well into that and provide them with perhaps more jurisdiction. And I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot that still needs to be worked out and a lot that still needs to be defined. We now thankfully have a person to help us, an engineering firm, and I really appreciate that because they are going to help us with the land use area, and they're going to really do a lot of data crunching for us and look at demographics within the town, trends in the area, and then this gets to your concern, Natalie. Do we have the right mix? Are we growing in the right direction? So we're going to meet with them on Tuesday. And that's basically our first opening meeting with that. It took a while for us to get the consultants, but we're very happy we have them now. We spent some time, so they have a scope of work that they're going to really help us for. And then the other really big part of the comp plan is the infrastructure part, and we'll be reaching out to Matt and the town. We need to really work through that, and we really do need the town's help on that because it's a very technical area. We don't have a good understanding of what the needs are and stuff like that, but we certainly need to incorporate that into the plan.
It's perfect. We're going to be picking it apart for the rate study anyway.
Right.
So
I think, what my goal is to take these top three items and get them pretty much completed shortly, next month or so. And then really spend the balance of the time focusing on the latter two components. There's some other stuff we need to put in to the plan and include in, and then really work to get a working draft, which is going to be a heavy lift. I go one reading through, as David can attest to that. So the goal is to finish this plan up.
Yeah, we can have a deadline of submitting to the town board by October.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Is the town board month of public hearing months. Thinking.
Yeah, my fiscal year at work is like end of the year. But we do have a lot of heavy lifting to do. As it is now, a bunch of us, we have a regular meeting, so meeting the board, and David has helped us as well, so multiple times. Rita's been involved in a lot of the additional meetings.
Yeah.
Did you have any specific questions, Alan?
Well, I think one's attending the meeting on Tuesday. Probably.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate feedback. One of the things you always worry about when you do a committee, and though you have a diverse representation on that committee, it's always helpful to get
Enforcement, actually, we're starting to try to roll out the short-term rental regulations that just got adopted. Trish was able to get all of the vacant homes registration letters out in January, and we've been getting the registrations back. That's a new code that has been going very well. And Linda sent out all of her annual renewal letters, chicken permits, all kinds of things. So a lot of that is out there, and we're just kind of waiting for it to trickle back. So planning department, Do you want to just talk about your training first and then you can do the drainage analysis first?
I'll just do, what I'd like to do is do a plug for the next meeting. So we have just a couple more minutes. But if you want to just pull up the first slide.
Yeah.
So Laura, let us know about some training, a while ago. So 3 board members and I went to a, Saratoga County Planning Conference up in Saratoga this past Wednesday. There were 730 attendees. The majority of them were from planning boards and zoning boards, but there were quite a few lawyers there. There's always legal updates and engineering firms. And you had, each attendee could pick 4 90-minute sessions. And I think there were 4 or 5 at each time slot, and you could pick one of the 4. So the 4 that I picked, I thought were really interesting, and I think they have some real applicability to what we've even talked about this morning. One was changes to the regulations of state wetlands that you need to know, and that's all about this transition from the Army Corps of Engineers being involved in some wetlands to DEC taking that on. And I've got a few more specifics on that, but I don't want to dive into them today because it'll take us a couple more minutes. The second one was know how to say no, which was really interesting. It was practical strategies for disapproval, but it was really more how to review a project too. It wasn't just how to say no to every project. It was how to make sure you're doing a responsible, consistent job of reviewing projects and tips. Basically, all the speakers for these sessions were literally in the 30 to 40 years of experience range. So it was really interesting. One referred to himself as a dinosaur lawyer, which is kind of funny. Just he'd been doing it for so long. So you could tell they all had a lot of just tips and information they gathered over the years, which was really interesting. The third session was on record keeping, minute taking, and public meeting laws. And that was really about the value of checklists and just having a format that you follow that can help in a lot of ways. It helps you with foils. It helps you protect about being arbitrary and capricious because you're following the same process each time. So that was interesting. And then the last one I found very interesting, striking a balance between parking and trees. And there were some presenters there from Wilton and Clifton Park. And one little tidbit, the druthers in Clifton Park, Laura, you'll have to peel Laura off the ceiling. They had a $700,000 budget for landscape.
How many trees did they take down?
No, this is a really interesting session because it talked a lot about, from the developer standpoint too, that most codes the parking spaces are dependent on the square footage of your building. So they look at that the other way around. Every time I need some landscaping that occupies 4 or 5 parking spaces, that made my building 1,000 square feet small. So it was all about kind of looking at everyone working together.
Yeah.
And they also had a really interesting concept that they've done in Clifton Park, I think it was. They called it infill development, where they had taken snapshots of like a Mohawk Commons, and they discovered that 33% of the parking is never used.
Oh, yeah.
So what they were doing is having some businesses develop in that area that's never used for parking as an alternative to taking down trees and putting up a new commercial building somewhere else. And it also led to more connectivity because you don't just have an ocean of parking, you can create more streets and more controlled flow. So there's just multiple benefits to it. But they said to do some of that, you have to change your code to work together with the developers. So they're really interesting sessions. They also, another little tidbit from that is they said they've been using permeable asphalt for 15 years and it works great. There's a blend that works really well. So it just kind of showed the value of getting out, talking to other communities, other projects. But a long time ago, I learned a concept of when you go to training or you do something, there was one trainer who every morning of a training session, he would ask the group, what did you do yesterday? What did you learn? And how can you apply that? So that really sticks in the back of my head. So I always try to do that when I go to a training session. So I've got just a couple bullets, a little bit more detail, but I'd like to save them to next time. And then as a group, we could talk about, maybe we could implement, one or two of these things.
Yeah, I have two comments. I think the Druthers example is a really good example, and I would highly suggest that people go up and see what they did.
Yeah.
Because they effectively increased their retail space in a very natural area.
Yeah.
Um,
We talked about the back, like the.
the whole back
whole-
area, the
the
side
whole
yard, the
parcel,
barn area, the whole parcel. I mean, it is very well done. I'm surprised they did it for someone with the best thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think, this is something that the CAC struggles with every single developers with the number of open spaces. And we are really hemmed in by the town code, and we're also hemmed in a lot of times by the developers' view that they need hundreds of open spaces
Right.
in order to draw people in, and we really need the code. Yeah.
Something you could share?
Hmm?
Is this something that you could share?
Sure, I think so. Yeah,
I would love to have the
Yeah.
information.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Clark, I'm very interested in this. It's
Yeah.
good,
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Maybe you could talk at the CAC
Yeah,
about this.
I like doing that because it kind of, the more you talk about it, you learn it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You learn a little something.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't look like old school Clifton Park strip mall development.
Oh, no.
If you
Yeah.
look at that parcel, that is definitely progressive.
And what he was really down on, this was a landscape architect, I think 30 years for Puff Harbor. And he was really down on the little skinny area in a massive parking lot with one or two trees in it, because he said they're not giving any shade. Most of them die because they're not cared for. So, he was kind of like, stop the madness. There's a better way to do some of this.
Yeah,
Especially when you have way more parking spaces than you.
Mohawk Commons, that always
Yeah.
like kills me when I go in and see that that little tiny island with a couple of like
Yeah,
7-foot trees.
Right.
They struggle.
and I think it was Wilton Mall or they had a really interesting shot, how they were able to create some more landscaped area, and they had much more of a pedestrian corridor like we've talked about in Mohawk Commons. So it was really interesting.
Okay, so thank you, Clark. We'll put the slides on for the next meeting
Sure.
too, and we could dive into them a little more. And then do we want to just give a quick update on the drainage analysis, in coordination with water, sewer engineering and highway? We had that meeting a couple weeks ago now.
But we're waiting for another quote, right?
Yeah, we're really targeting for the spring. You want me to say a little bit?
Yeah.
Sure. So basically, I would say as we've talked about before, we've really been in this data gathering, planning mode, and we're targeting the spring to really start getting more of an outreach program to really get it more public within town and really get going. We want to really focus on public outreach and making sure that we get feedback from the community, especially if someone has what we're calling hotspots areas like Seneca Road, where we're seeing real drainage challenges. So we've identified an engineering firm that we really like. They've done several presentations for us, just showing examples of their work. We're reaching out to a couple more, and we're adding a little bit more public outreach to the RFP, because we would like the engineering firm to be really involved in the public outreach too. So people aren't just hearing from us, they're hearing from people who do this every day, all day, what they do.
In the hydrogeological.
Yeah,
gonna be
we've made
incorporated
them
in that.
aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll get their input on that. And, we're really targeting the spring to get going because that's when people's yards will be getting wet if they have a spot. And, that, anything you want to add, Aaron? I didn't need to grab all.
Oh, I think waiting for the next quote to see where we are. I know we included those questions, and yeah, I think right now we're just trying to figure out how we can get community input that makes sense for the study. I say that because we have a lot of people that have wet backyards. That's not necessarily the drainage problems that we're looking to target. So we're trying to find the best way to describe that,
Yeah.
I guess, so that the people that we have coming in have issues that are different than, oh, my backyard's soggy and April, which is, I think, a lot of people. So I think hopefully they'll be able to give us some ideas on how to do that, but we want to make sure that we're covering all of those hotspots. So we have a list, but are there more? We've got to hear from other people. So, yeah.
And one of the sessions, just another plug for the training session, there's a bullet item that stormwater is driving so many projects now because it's just such a big deal now that's one of the major influencers or drivers of projects. So, it's just kind of interesting to see. You go to these training things, what we're experiencing, a lot of other people are experiencing too. It's good to learn from approaches they're taking.
There aren't really any updates on the Council Road sidewalk and the mini road easement. So, Dr. Horton, is there anything you wanted to talk about to us about Metroplex today?
Well, actually, not about Metroplex. As you know, last month I pretty much lived in a hospital with my wife, and so I was actually in the hospital when we had the meeting. However, we do have a meeting this coming week, and I'll be in attendance there. However, I do have the report that I'm moving full speed ahead on the proposal to make Niskayuna a sister city with Dhaka, Bangladesh. So I'll be they're very amenable to that. And when I go there, I'll be leaving for Dhaka in late April. And I'll meet with the mayor, and we'll pretty much have a ceremonial handshake and a greeting and kiss each other's cheeks, exchange gifts, and we'll be officially have a sister city arrangement. And so in between now and then, we'll work out what that all means.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. Alina was unable to come to this meeting this morning and she didn't have any updates to give me. So that leaves you, Rita. Do you have anything you wanted to add from the historical committee? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, yes. The one thing I wanted to discuss was the historic register. All right, and I'm glad that Dark brought up the comprehensive plan, and including the ARB, because what the last comprehensive plan, okay, the one that we're still working under, okay, the objective number 3 was to set up this registry. Okay, that had not been done. And the reason being is why we have a situation with the Schaefer homes. The historic registry is mainly it's a catch-all for what does not fit into the national and state requirements as historic preservation. Right, so that all of these buildings that are locally precious to us, that have meaning, okay, because it could be someone who was prominent, who has lived in this house, properties that the beginning properties, the first homes, first families, and things as such. When it comes to architecture, however, you have to be innovative. It has to be something that has an impact on this area for it to be historic. Okay, now cultural could be the churches, your religion, or something that was fashionable. And this is what we discussed, prior to, we've been having this discussion for a very long time. One thing I wanted to add was, usually when you have that situation, the community members do get together. They can get a charter, and they get a charter and they advocate. They can also get grants, make up their own organizations, have their own, just like the Underground Railroad, have their own organizations, but having them in as part of the ARB is beneficial for the Schaefer homes because they have a large variety of homes. Okay, and the as far as historical architecture, that still has to be siphoned out. Okay, what was innovative about these buildings? What was something like we go back to the single pour method of building homes. Okay, which we had one here. Okay, that is historic. That is nationally historic because what it did was change the form of architecture. You see, that's the difference. So right now we're all trying to get in a comprehensive plan. What I did write up was I put the National Register back in there again because that is something that's important. And what that will do is whatever is culturally significant, whatever has historic presence here, but does not reach the state or national level, it will be added to that register. Okay, not only that, it helps the building department, as I explained to Laura, because a lot of times Laura has to give have information to back up what she is putting forward at other places with in a timely manner. She'll be able to go into that database and the historic information will be there. You see, and it says in the terminology used in the old comprehensive plan was a centralized database, okay, of our historic preservation efforts and our historic preservation elements, right? So this is what we're talking about now. And we weren't able to do that last year, but this year, the committee, this is our target this year. Because once we have it set up and sorted, from there going out, it'll just be adding buildings that as they reach the 50-year mark, taking off buildings, but keeping the records of buildings who are demolished that have to be demolished for some reason. All right, so I just wanted to add that so we understand exactly how, when we're doing the comprehensive plan for the Historic Commission, okay, how we have to craft this. Okay, because you have to understand that difference. When you're talking about buildings.
Okay, yeah, we're excited to get the registry going. I know your committee was working a lot on Lions Park train station, so it'll be nice to have that as a goal for this year, and I think it'll be really important to put it in the comprehensive plan. So
Yeah.
okay, did anybody have anything else they want to add? Can we get a motion?
Great, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
No second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Rita. Thanks, Janet.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Once they put, I think I'm here. That and also, you see the stuff you were looking like